Oh my, it has been a while since I recorded a solo episode. This feels kind of weird. But here we are. Because yeah, if you listened to my last solo episode, which I believe at this point was several months ago because it's the new year, um, that episode was called I Can't Do This Anymore, in which I said I couldn't record solo episodes. And at that moment in time, I couldn't. And even yesterday, I couldn't. Because it's been really hard for me to talk lately. To even use energy, if that makes sense. Like, my internal world is so rich and so vast, and it's become increasingly difficult for me to translate what is going on inside of me into words, whether that is written word, whether that is spoken word. Um, it's very difficult for me to do that in solitude. Like, I can do it in client sessions, and I can do it when I'm with my mom or my sisters, or when I am in group calls, or when I'm recording a podcast with someone else. But increasingly, it's just become way more difficult to execute basically by myself. Yeah, so I don't really know what's going on there. But anyways, the reason why I am recording this solo episode today was because I totally felt like it, as you can probably hear in my very animated voice, and because I sent out a newsletter. Why did I say that weird? A newsletter. I sent out a newsletter a few days ago titled Five Things I'm Leaving Behind in 2025, in which I shared five things I'm leaving behind in 2025. And I really wanted to record it as a podcast episode because I feel like there's so much wisdom in there, and I know that we all process words differently because, especially recently, I definitely have noticed that I have been processing words very differently when I read versus hear them. Like, for example, when it comes to fiction books, I realize that I process what is going on so much better when I'm listening to an audiobook versus when I'm reading the physical book. Whereas with nonfiction, I have noticed that I process the words so much better when I read them versus when I listen to them. So, yeah, if you relate to that at all, that is not weird. That is just, I guess, how you process the information. And again, this isn't to say that it doesn't shift and evolve over time, because more and more I've actually found it really difficult to have auditory input. So, as we will get into in this episode, more and more I can't really listen to audiobooks or podcasts anymore because it's like too much stimulation entering me. And I don't know if that's, just being really sensitive or being in burnout right now and just needing more stillness, or if it's part of this whole existential transformation I've been going through, which again, we are going to cover in this episode, which is why I wanted to record this episode. And obviously, I also talked about that in the newsletter. So if you are not yet signed up for my weekly slash, I don't know if they're going to be weekly at this point anymore because I'm going more with the flow of my being and my creativity and all that, and time is made up. And I think the idea that I have to publish something or share something every week, it I don't know if it's how much of it is my demand avoidance, or if it's just, me again wanting to tap more into my natural creative flow rather than adhere to schedules. But that's why also with this podcast, like, I don't want it to be like every week on Tuesday anymore, because that, even just saying that, is so stressful and it feels like too much pressure. So I'm just gonna record podcasts when I want to record them. I'm going to send emails when I want to send them. I'm going to write books when I want to write them. I'm going to publish them when I can publish them, and really just lean into my creative flow, because our souls, our creative flows do not operate on linear time. They do not operate on Earth time. And oh my God, I'm already going on so many tangents, but This is why, the fiction novel that I've been writing about an autistic alien, on their alien planet, time does not exist. They operate on like self time. I don't even remember what I called it, but like they operate on timelines that are unique to each individual. So, anyways, what was I saying about my newsletter? My newsletters are pretty great, and I share things there that I don't share anywhere else. And they're super personal, and I open up in ways that I don't open up anywhere else. So, if you are not yet signed up to my emails, you can do so at livelabelfree.com/join. And I did send out everything you're about to listen to. I did send that out in an email newsletter a few days ago, like I already said. We're going in circles here, Olivia. So if you have read that newsletter, what you're about to hear might ring a bell. But again, even if you did already read it, I encourage you to keep listening because, like I said, we all hear new things, we interpret things differently when we read them versus when we listen to them. And like I said, there's so much wisdom, so I'm sure that you're gonna get so much out of today's episode. So yeah, with all of that intro rambling out of the way, let's get into 5 things I'm leaving behind in 2025, and more importantly, what I'm taking with me going into 2026. Welcome to the Live Label Free podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Sarah, an autistic eating disorder recovery coach that's here to help you turn your mess into your message. You can find my books, blogs, courses, coaching, and much more at livelabelfree.com. So that's L-I-V, labelfree.com. And now let's dive into today's episode. I've been going through an incredible transformation recently, or more accurately, multiple micro transformations since around this time last year. Well, I guess since around the fall/winter of 2024, so almost 2 years ago at this point. But anyways, time aside, because time is made up anyways. You may remember a podcast I released at the end of 2024 in which I shared how I injured my foot in France and how this injury was a massive wake-up call. And I honestly can't even remember what I titled that episode, but it was something about when life forces you to rest. It was a Q&A about autistic burnout and energy debt, in which I made a connection between autistic burnout and the energy debt one builds up when you have a history of an eating disorder, or as I like to say, eating adaptation. So definitely go check out that episode, because that was, honestly, even just thinking about it, like that was one of the most profound moments that kind of has led to everything I've been experiencing, or not led to, but I just feel like it's connected, but everything is connected. And we're not even gonna go into that rabbit hole now, because that's why it's been so hard for me to go on social media lately, or even to post podcast, or even to write like short form content, because everything I think, everything I write is not shallow. What do I mean by that? Everything in my head is a domino. So if I think one thing, it just leads to 1,000 gazillion more thoughts. And that's why with short form content, like you have to restrict yourself. And I just can't do that anymore. Which I think is part of the whole transformation, and why I feel like I'm really tapping into my full infinite self is, yeah. Anyways, I'm not even going down this rabbit hole, because like I said, that is what I'm trying to prevent by reading the newsletter that I wrote a few days ago, so we can stay on fucking track, Livia, okay? So anyways, that episode that I recorded about my foot injury, I will link it in the show notes in case you haven't listened yet. And even if you did listen when it came out, go listen to it again, because as I said in the intro, you always gain new insights when you read or listen to things again. So anyways, since that time, I have been experiencing several existential shifts. more and more I feel disconnected from previous versions of myself. And that absolutely fucking terrifies me because that is when I am confronted with my biggest fear, which is the fear of emptiness. And again, just another quick side note that I did not put in the email newsletter, and this is why it's good to listen to the podcast and read the newsletters because I often throw in things in either place that I did not anticipate I was going to add in. But that was, of course, my biggest fear when letting go of the eating adaptation, and what kept me stuck in quasi recovery was this fear of who am I going to be if I don't know who I am, right? And that's a fear that I've had my whole life is like, who is Livia? Like, what is my identity? And that's what the eating disorder and also the in recovery identity gives you. It gives you something to hold on to, right? So more and more, I feel very disconnected from any kind of identity, any kind of sense of self. And that's what's also, I think, made it harder for me to translate what's going on inside of me into like tangible words and even tangible content is because my insides, my soul, can never be made tangible. And that's fucking terrifying. But at the same time, I feel more and more aligned with my being, emphasis on being, right? And in my newsletter, I put being in italics because being, that's the essence, the soul. It can't be grasped. It can't even put into words. Like the word being isn't even fully reflective of what I mean. But I trust that, you feel what I mean. Because yeah, that's the only way to understand it is to feel it. So despite the existential hell this past year has been, and if you have been reading my newsletters and have been listening to my podcast, you know that I have been talking more and more about feeling so trapped in this body. And I think part of that has been, this like being forced to confront my being and to confront existence, I guess. Wow, we are going so deep. But speaking of deep, I feel on a deep soul level that I am stepping into a new era of myself. And as I said in the intro, in the previous episode that I recorded with Kathy, I feel like I am becoming who I am. And every time I say that, I start to cry. And that's been another thing that's been really profound recently is that I have been feeling, yeah, period. I have just been feeling so much recently. I've been crying, not even knowing why, like not even been able to say, oh, I feel happy or this or that, but just feeling and not even feeling any desire to give it a label. And I think a huge part of this has been that for the past 4 years, I have been, well, not even the past 4 years, my whole life, I've been putting on this mask. I've been suppressing. And now, like, stepping into who I am, finally, I'm, like, letting myself feel who I am. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, you guys. No, why am I even apologizing? Yeah, this is very profound for me. Yeah. On that note, I am no longer interested in almost everything I have been chasing for the past few years. Because for most of 2025, I have been trying to force myself to continue with the podcast, with the blogs, with the Instagram, with the autism ED recovery content, with, all the things that I have basically built Live Label Free on. I have been forcing myself to do that. But I now realize why 2025 has been absolute fucking hell for me. because my soul has been screaming that is not who we are anymore. The burnout, the exhaustion, the repulsion by continuing the way I was continuing. It was nothing more than a signal that I was not acting in alignment with my being, that everything I've been doing is no longer in alignment with me anymore. And moving back home a few months ago, which you know I have moved back home. Again, if you read my newsletters, and I believe I mentioned it on the podcast. I can't remember if I did, but I know that I talked about it in my email newsletters. Like, even that has been very profound because a few years ago I said, I swore I was never coming back to the Netherlands. I remember posting an Instagram story a few years ago. I remember it so clearly. It was a picture of me waving at my mom, taking the picture, holding my US passport in the air, because I have a Dutch passport and a US passport. I'm dual citizen, which is amazing. But I don't know how amazing it is to be a US citizen at this point anymore. But that's a rabbit hole we won't go down. And I remember posting on my Instagram story, it was, bye bye Netherlands, see you never. I genuinely believed I was never coming back here. And I think a huge part of that was, the trauma that I experienced with the healthcare system here, being written off as too complex in 2015, and just, yeah, the shit show of a healthcare this country has, which again is another myth about the Netherlands and Europe. It's like free healthcare, yeah, but it's pretty shitty. Obviously not everywhere, but take it all with a grain of salt. It's very nuanced. But anyways, coming back home, moving back in with my mom, again, something I thought I would never ever do. It has given me a sense of safety that I have not felt in a very long time. Emphasis on very long. And this has made space for my soul to ground itself back in my body. And I cannot even begin to tell you how relieving, exciting, and joyous that has been feeling for me, and those words are just barely scratching the surface of how I feel. And just need to take a pause here to wipe my tears because my face is feeling itchy and salty from my unexpected moment of crying just now. But anyways, telling you all of that, although has been very important and profound, obviously, for me to share, is not actually why I wanted to record this episode. I wrote my newsletter and I'm recording this podcast to share 5 things I'm leaving behind in 2025. And again, more importantly, what is coming and what is changing and who I'm going to be in 2026, because that's why we leave things behind, right? So we can move on with what is more important and more aligned. I really think that what I'm about to share is going to resonate. I hope it will inspire you. And obviously I wrote this because like with all of my writing, I write and I share because it pulls at me. It's like a magnetic, creative, bursting at the seams of you have to share this with the world. So here we go. 5 things I'm leaving behind. Well, since it's already 2026. 5 things I've left behind in 2025. And number 1 is always being productive. And this one is at the top of the list for a reason. But contrary to popular belief, my constant drive to be productive isn't because of hustle culture or because I feel pressure from society. Recently, and I mentioned this in the intro, I've started to crave a lot more silence, which means going on walks with no podcast, no audiobook, no music, just me and my thoughts. I used to never be able to do this. I constantly needed stimulation and a distraction, and basically just a way to not be in my body. But after feeling more trapped than ever in the spring and summer of 2025 and having no choice but to do a lot of healing work around the fact that I am a soul in a human body costume, I'm starting to feel more grounded, but also more respectful of this human body costume and what it does for me, rather than frustrated with its boundaries. For me, 2026 is all about honoring my intuition even more and respecting the ever shifting changes of my soul and body. Rather than distraction, I'm focusing even more on intuition and intention. Again, intention in italics. Because the question here is, and the question that I've been asking myself a lot recently, is how do I want to feel? How do I want to experience life? And always, I was going to say all the time, then I said always. All the time, always, the answer is peaceful and not rushed. And speaking from personal experience, I can assure you that constantly trying to be productive, in air quotes, will not make you feel peaceful or less rushed. So, number two, second thing I have left behind in 2025 is needing to solve my thoughts. And this is a big one and definitely connected to the productive one. Because I think we can all agree that neurodivergent people have a lot of thoughts. Too many, if I'm being honest. But to us, they're not just thoughts. That's why meditation can be so frustrating and why let your thoughts pass like clouds makes me want to whack someone in the head. But if you do want neurodiversity affirming meditations, made and recorded by yours truly, do check out my neurodiversity affirming meditations. I have a few on autistic burnout. I have release eating disorder thoughts meditation. I have a meditation to listen to when you are in crisis. I have a meditation for neurodivergent overwhelm. I have an anxiety meditation. I will link the meditation playlist on my YouTube channel. I'll link it in the show notes below. Because some of you who have listened have said the sweetest things about how you're not able to listen to meditations, but you can listen to mine. And Linda, if you're listening to this, Linda sent me a wonderful message about how one of my meditations, I can't remember which one, it like made her feel so seen for the first time. So, anyways, coming back to what I was saying about thoughts and having too many thoughts and needing to solve my thoughts, every one of my thoughts feels like a puzzle piece that needs to be correctly placed. I have such an intense fear of forgetting things that I obsess over writing everything down, but because it's obviously physically impossible to write everything down, let alone act on these written down things, I end up too overwhelmed and exhausted to do anything, and hello, burnout. In line with respecting my body and the boundaries of this physical plane, as I mentioned when describing point one and why I'm leaving behind needing to be productive, I accept the fact that I'm going to have more thoughts than I will ever know what to do with. And maybe that's not a curse, but actually a gift. Because I cannot solve, let alone act on every thought, I must choose to engage the ones that are the most important to me. So, point number three, third thing I'm leaving behind, I have left behind in 2025, and this is actually really hard saying out loud. It is being the autistic ED recovery coach. And this one is really difficult to share because chances are that you found me and are listening to this precisely because you want guidance on your ED recovery journey as a neurodivergent person or as a caregiver of a neurodivergent person. But as I'm saying this and as I was typing this, I realized that you didn't actually come here for autism and ED recovery content. You're here because, like the most of us, you want to live a more peaceful, fulfilling, meaningful, happy, and less stressful life. And if you've worked with me through one-on-one coaching, the Autistically ED Free Academy, the Live Label Free membership, and soon 51 Days to Freedom, I'm super excited. We start next week. You know that we rarely, if ever, talk about food, exercise, or anything ED related, really. Because just like productivity, an eating disorder is nothing more than a distraction. It's a way to hide. It's a way to not be in a body. A huge part of my existential transformation is realizing that I don't want to be put in that autistic ED recovery coach box anymore. I am live label free after all. I want to coach, yes, but I also want to write, read, connect, love, laugh, walk, run, bike, cook, watch Netflix, and do all the other things I want to do. But most importantly, I want to do these things wholeheartedly. I want to do things without feeling like I have to rush through them. I want to do these things without feeling guilty and wrong for not creating autism and ED related content. Or honestly, I want to do these things without feeling guilty and wrong for not, quote unquote, working and being productive. Because, like I said at the top of this episode, that version of Livia has already left the universe. So, closely related to everything I just said, point 4, the fourth thing I've left behind in 2025 is rushing through everything. And I feel inclined to talk about this as its own point, because per usual, it is nuanced. And I want to share an anecdote from my childhood that helped me understand why I have always felt so damn rushed. Ever since I was little, I wanted to know when things would end. As soon as we arrived at a restaurant, a party, whatever, I would ask my mom, "When are we leaving?" And she would reply, "Huh? Didn't you want to come here?" And then I would say, "Yes, but I need to know when we're leaving." And at the time, neither of us knew why I needed to know. But looking back, I finally understand. I craved boundaries. By knowing when we were leaving, I had predictability, which, in turn, gave me a sense of safety and trust. And if you have done my Autistically ED Free Academy, you know that safety and trust are the foundation of everything. So, coming back to the episode, by knowing when we were leaving, the abstract concept of existence at whatever foreign place we were now had clear walls. A clear start time, a clear end time. And although I like to tell myself the story, and if you've read my book, How to Get Out of Quasi-Recovery, you know that the entire point of that book is that the eating disorder and quasi-recovery is itself a story, and you possess the power to write a story you actually want to be part of. And that is how you get out of quasi-recovery, is by claiming the permission to write a new story. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but seriously, if you have not read How to Get Out of Quasi-Recovery yet, or have not read any of my books yet for that matter, go do yourself a favor and grab a copy. You can find all of my books on Amazon or on my own website, livelabelfreebooks.com. Obviously, we'll leave the link in the show notes as well. But yeah, definitely go grab my books because, like I've said before, my books are my art. They are the purest expression of my soul and of my creativity, and I would love you to be part of my creativity. So, going back to what I was saying, although I like to tell myself the story that I'm afraid of running out of time, I've realized that it's not really mental. I feel a ticking time bomb in my chest, and that's more of an existential experience than a state of cognitive awareness. So, to elaborate on what I mean here, I have no certainty around how much time I truly have, because let's be real, none of us do. So by rushing through everything, I'm almost trying to be ahead of time. And just typing that out and just saying it out loud again, like every time I read it, say it, type it, I'm just astounded by how twisted that is. So, moving on to our fifth and final point of what I'm leaving behind, what I've left behind in 2025, is making sure that everything has a point. No pun intended. Again, this point is closely related to everything I just said, but my whole life has revolved around only doing things if they have a point. I believe I mentioned this in my latest podcast episode with Kathy titled, Has Your Eating Disorder Expired? But as a kid, I would only do things if I could somehow come up with a reason for doing them. Even if I genuinely wanted to do something, that desire was not quote unquote enough of a reason. Say, for example, I wanted to read my favorite book series, Rainbow Magic. Yeah, I'm not even kidding you. Literally, my favorite book series as a kid was Rainbow Magic. And I believe, yeah, those books are still in existence, obviously. And I believe there's so many more that were written after I stopped reading that series. But anyways, tangent. Instead of reading, because oh, how nice it is to read and what a nice experience in life to be able to read books, I would take it a step further. And I would say, I'm going to read so I can fill the afternoon and can go to another reality so I don't have to feel that I'm on Earth. And I know it's nuanced, and I guess to a certain extent, we all have like unconscious reasons why we do things, but I was so aware of why I was doing it that I couldn't just do it unless I knew why I was doing it. Like I had to be aware of being aware to do it. I don't even know if that makes sense, but I trust that it does. So, there you have it. 5 things I've left behind in 2025. And now I'd love to hear from you, my friend. What are you leaving behind in 2025? And what are you taking with you in 2026? Or rather, what are you going to be more intentional about this year? Because again, like I said, this part of the reason why I had such a hard time doing solo episodes is because the conversation feels very one-sided. But now that we've made it to the end of this episode, almost, I feel very calm and I'm so glad that I recorded this. And I'm actually hoping to do some more solo episodes on my timeline when I'm in the creative flow, when I'm feeling it, because yeah, like so much of what I said, I didn't even think I was gonna say, like in that moment where I just started crying. That was not expected, that was not part of the plan. But maybe again, that's the beauty of life and existence is that things happen that are not part of the plan, and that's obviously what makes ED recovery and existence so terrifying. But as I always say, the map is the trap, and waiting until you know what's gonna happen, you'll be waiting your whole fucking life. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what insights you got out of this episode. I'd love to hear what you're working on, what your current transformation existential experience is. So yeah, do reach out to me. You can contact me at livelabelfree.com/contact. Be sure to sign up for my newsletters, livelabelfree.com/join. And if you want to speak to me in real time, I have a few different options for how you can work with me. I obviously have one-on-one coaching, and I actually have several spots open for 2026. So you can learn all about that on my website, livelabelfree.com. And I've also made some amazing changes to the Live Label Free membership because I wanted to make it even more affordable and even more accessible than it already was. So yeah, it's really, really affordable this time around. And when you join the membership, you get access to my entire backlist of previously recorded calls. You get full access to my extreme hunger course, which I recently fully updated, and most profoundly, most importantly, most funly, I guess, most impactfully, I'm just making up words here, you get to join our several times a month live group calls. And these, I mean, I cannot even begin to describe the depth that we go into in these calls. I have cried on multiple occasions during these calls, just by just by how touching the experience was. And yeah, anyone who's listening to this who is in the membership knows how profound and impactful and honestly just special and remarkable and rare these calls are. So I'd love for you to join us in the Live Label Free membership, which you can do at livelabelfree.com/membership. And if you have any questions about it, of course you can contact me or you can send me an email, livia@livelabelfree.com. And now that I am, feeling like awakened again to do more solo episodes, I'd love to hear from you also about if there are specific topics or things that you want me to talk about more, if there are aspects of my personal life that you want me to share about more. Yeah, because right now I've been feeling a bit like I want input for creation. Like I want to, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Like I'd love to create, let me rephrase that. There's nothing I love to create more than when I know that I'm creating something someone has asked of me. Does that make sense? Yeah, so anyways, I am rambling on now. And if you hear like weird cracks in the background, those have been my knees and my hips. I don't really know what's been going on there. Anyways, I am very grateful that you listened all the way to the end of this episode. If you are still here, I love you. And I really look forward to talking to you in the next episode. And obviously, I really hope to talk to you in real time in either the Live Label Free membership or through one-on-one coaching. You can learn about it all on my website, livelabelfree.com. And I will talk to you soon, my friend. I hope you have an amazing 2026, and yeah, I really just wish you all the best in your existence, because you are a one-of-a-kind miracle of the universe, and you deserve all the miraculous things that life has to offer. Okay, bye! Thank you so much for listening to the podcast, my friend. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you could leave a positive rating and review for the Live Label Free podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's a free way to show your support so I can continue bringing you the valuable content that I love to create for you.